Man, it's nice to see the sun. It's still winter time. It's very deceiving how bright it is. Makes you feel like it's a warm day. Well, it's not. You can still see your breath. Ice on the ground. So today what I want to do is pick up where I left off yesterday. I started stripping this, what's left of the bus frame down. I got all the air lines off of the air brakes, and I took the air dryer off. Air dryer is really, I wanted to get the supply line off of it and some other pieces, but I won't use it. It's been open for so long. The desiccant bag, or desiccant material in there is probably no good. But these brake valves and the fittings, mostly the fittings, they add up to quite a bit of money. I mean, you can see here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 fittings on there. There's another fitting plus a T fitting, reducers. Those are all DOT fittings. There's some push to leaks right here. When you're doing a build, it's not uncommon to end up with a couple $100 worth of fittings really fast. So we're going to reduce this down to just these 2 frame rails here, because I need more frame rail for the roll-off build. So I started taking apart all the bolts I could, the ones that would come loose. Anything that wouldn't come loose, we're just going to torch, and that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm just going to get the torch out and burn the rest of them off, get this bump stop off. We're going to take the hangers off and then set the axle aside for another build. Some other day we might use that. We'll see. And we'll take the driver's station here, whatever you want to call that. We'll take that off. That'll go right to scrap. We have absolutely no use for that. So that being said, I'm going to get the torches out here and get to work. I'll probably take these bolts off. I forgot about these. These are bolted on. I'll probably take them bolts out because those large bolts are grade 8s and they're usually in good shape. So see what we can do. Oh, there's some nice tow hooks down there too. All right, let's get it out here.
Well, he's got it reduced down to just the bare frame. Took all the stuff off of it. He's got one more bolt to go that he's cutting. All done. I would say. It's all done.
Okay, we got what we need.
All right.
So the only thing that's going to scrap is parts of that. We'll save this section right here because that's a good mount maybe for our valving or something. The rest of it's pretty rough. I might plasma cut that plate out. We'll hang on to these front plates and get these nice big hooks out the front, the nice tow hooks. We'll hang on to those, but that'll go to scrap. And that's about it. That means other than the bus body itself, we have used or will have used almost every piece of it.
It's pretty good.
Yep. That was pretty cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start working on mounting the cylinders to the frame and the truck. These are the ones CE brought us, and he rebuilt them, put all new seals in them, cleaned them all up, and brought them out, and we sure appreciate that. I have been trying very hard to figure out and overcome having that 9 feet of unsupported frame up there, and how I could do bracing. And like when we get done with this, we're going to have X bracing in this frame to keep it from racking this way. And I didn't mention that in the last video, but we will have some extra bracing. I just don't know what it's going to be made out of yet because I haven't found anything that we can use. So I thought before I start mounting these on the truck, we're going to take some time and go see if we can find a longer set of cylinders. So me and the owner of the truck spent one day and we went around and we visited several places. We went to one place that has trash trucks and roll-offs, and they're parting them out, and they thought they had what we needed and they didn't. So we went to another place that they told us about that sells trash trucks and roll-off trucks, and they actually had the cylinders we needed, but they couldn't get in contact with their boss, who's in a different state, and it was a big ordeal. So we didn't get anything there. We went to yet another place and ended up that they had exactly what we needed. It was a government surplus place, and we found these brand new, never used hydraulic cylinders that are the perfect collapse length and the perfect extended length. They're big enough diameter that I'm happy with it. They're single stage. The only thing I'm really not excited about is the way it mounts. It's got this 1.25 inch ear that comes straight off. For our application, I would prefer it be a piece of tubing coming off this way, so it gives us more stability on the pin. This is what was in it, one of these swivel eyes. So I drove that out, measured it, and I'm having pins made that we can put in here, and we'll be able to weld all the way around this side, put a gusset over here, and it'll allow us to space the cylinder away from the truck on both ends. So don't pay attention to this, safety police. I did this so I could get this up in the air and I could make sure that it's going to work the way I want. Now, I really wanted to make a bracket here that will support that. It will hold the cylinder and support that joint. So what I decided to do was, after considering truck frame and all my options and what I'd have to do, I just came to the point where I thought, squirrel. The owner was here helping me put these in place. He let the cylinder hit the paint and chipped it. I was so upset about that. He wasn't. Didn't matter to him. It definitely upset me. Anyways, I'll have to fix that. So I want to have something that's going to support that joint and hold that cylinder. So what I did was I called up a friend of mine who has a 50-ton press and a metal shear, and I made up these little 3D diagrams or 3D whatever. And these are the brackets he's going to make. Obviously, this is much smaller, but the idea is it's going to hang over the frame on that side like that, and then over here like this. And it'll come down the frame 22 inches on this side, 18 inches on this side, and then the pin will sit right down in here. Well, when the pin sits in here, the part that they shear off here will cut down and use it here, and we'll run the pin through the inside and the outside. And then after it's hanging on the frame, we'll be able to bolt it on either side of that seam and then come in from the center of the pin upwards at a triangle, at an angle, and then gusset it up through here. That's the idea. So I have to get these made, and a friend of mine has a lathe where he can make these for us. So this is kind of what we're making. 6 inches long, 1.5 inches in the center, 2.43 on the outside. He's making me 4 of those. Once we get those, we're going to slide them through. You could just, cut this off and, just weld it right to here. But I don't want to do that. I want to leave this just the way it is, and I'd rather add some gusseting in here and leave that factory weld in place on both ends. I don't think I can reproduce that weld. So we'll just leave that, and then when I put my stuff through, I'll have a lot of weld on here. So even if it isn't as good, then it should hold. So that's kind of the idea there. Another concern is the air brakes on this truck. This truck was originally, it's a 1980s, mid 80s, and it had the one air tank that split into 3 chambers. And I'll show you that over here. This tank has a front, what's called a wet tank. So all the air from the compressor comes into here, and then it comes out of this one into the primary brakes and secondary, or vice versa. This one's slightly shorter than this one, so I assume that's the secondary. This is a primary. So what I did is I measured this length and the diameter and figured out the volume, and I compared that to a later model International like this and the volume here, because my concern is this truck is now going to be doing a lot of stop and go, especially if there's stuff stuck in the back of the truck, or he's trying to get the dumpster up on. He might be hitting them brakes a lot. So I'm concerned he may run out of air. Now, I'm thinking I might just change over to the newer international system, and I'm just thinking this through as we talk here, but to run 2 of these tanks, which would give me 37% more volume for the wet tank, the secondary, and the primary. So we would have 2 physically the same tanks mounted to the truck. The one tank would have 1/3 of it, 1/3 of this would be a wet tank, 2/3 would be for the secondary, and then the other one, just like it, would be completely for the primary brakes. And that would give them more capacity, and I'm just working that through. If I have them and they're in good shape or they're usable, I'm going to consider doing that. If I don't have them, we'll have to address it and see if I can come up with something, or you know, maybe just see how this works out. I don't want him to run out of air pressure, because that would be a bad deal, that's for sure. So I pulled these tanks out from under this battery box over here. Yeah, I looked at them real good and they looked okay, but as soon as you start peeling the garbage paint off, I'm not sure we're doing them any better. I'm gonna have to clean these up with the wire wheel and see what we really have. I was able to save 3 of the cables. One of them broke. It's pretty good odds. That one had a split in the sheathing already, so it may have been already started. Let's get it in and see what we got. Alright, so I went out and got some tanks, pulled them off trucks, and started to clean them up because I wanted to paint them. And, well, before I start that, I wanted to thank Mr. Helio Pilot for this. He sent us these. These are disconnects for all those electrical connectors that I take apart occasionally. And he said he had a couple sets of them, or I think he said he had a couple sets. And he got me a set and sent it to me. So thank you very much. I definitely will use those. I guess my car antenna is a little crude for some of that stuff, but I kept forgetting. I had this sitting in the kitchen on the counter where I keep all my phone and keys and stuff, so I could remember to thank him for that, and I just kept walking by and forgetting to grab it every time I come out to the shop. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to make things a little bit easier taking them connectors apart for sure. So I got my tanks here, and I was cleaning them all up like I always do, and you know, they looked pretty decent. And start knocking the powder coating off of them and hitting the wire wheel. And this is why I do it, because you get underneath that powder coating gets a chip in it, and then the water gets between the powder coating and the metal, the water and the salt brine solution, and just eats it out. You can see how pitted this is from the outside. You know, the other culprit is nobody ever drains their air tanks, so they get filled full of water. And this is from the outside also, but if you don't drain your tanks, you get them, they'll rot from the inside out. Of course, these ones are from the outside in, but I wanted to clean them up and paint them and use them on this truck, but you know, they're just not usable. So this one over here ended up being okay. It's usable, and I found that one there. So hopefully between the two, I'm gonna go look at another truck and see if I have another one of these with the split tank. If I do, I'd rather use that. This is just one tank, not split, so that would mean I have 3 tanks, because that's not split and this isn't split. This is just for primary. That was an old primary tank, which I would make it the secondary, but I wouldn't have a wet tank yet. So if I can find another one of these that matches, it makes it a whole lot easier to mount. So let me see what I can find. So me and the friend of mine that owns this truck went over to my other property where I had some truck frame laying around, and I had these 2 pieces and another one, and we brought this over here so I can start using it. What I want to do is come up here to the front of this, and I want to cut this on a 45 and cut truck frame on a 45 and cap the end of this. And then as I cap the end of it, I I want to be able to stiffen this up because the winch is going to mount up here. A lot of guys said put the winch back there and you wouldn't have to run such a long cable. I can't do that. There's just not enough room back there for the winch, and none of that. I don't want all the road spray getting on the winch constantly. It's better to have it up here protected by the cab. But the bigger reason is when he goes to hook up two trailers, the very front of the trailer is going to have a pintle ring. That's what he's going to hook to. We're going to reuse pintle rings. Well, that pintle ring will come in there and end up hitting that thing, and it's just not a good situation. I would rather have the long cable and put it up here where it's protected and out of the way, and hopefully later down the road this turns into what's called reeving cylinders. Reeving cylinders are a hydraulic system that you have a ram here and a ram here. We need two for our length, and you take a cable and you make it a fixed point up here, run it down around the end of the cylinder that would move. You come back this way, go over that side, go over that way, go over the end of that cylinder, come back here again to a pulley, and then down that way. And the purpose for that is several things. One is hydraulics are far stronger than any electric winch we could put on here, and they're more reliable. Winches, they have either electric or hydraulic motor. Eventually they'll fail. Cylinders will leak, so they're far more reliable. And the purpose for winding them back and forth is a couple things. One is you're increasing your power of the cylinders, so you don't have to use massive cylinders to move the load. The other is travel. Like, this is 20 feet long. If you try to do this with a cylinder, if you just used one cylinder, you'd have to have at least 10 foot of travel, and it double back. So every time you change your direction and come back again, you're multiplying the travel that the cylinders, the length of the cylinders that the cable is moving. And a reeving system would work very well in here, and that's why you're seeing all the cross members. I've turned them upside down. So I need a place to mount the winch, and I also want to stiffen up this corner so it doesn't rack. So I'm taking a piece of truck frame, and I cut the back lip off of it, and I'm going to bring it up right on the bottom of here, and then weld all the way around here, and then also down this flange. So we can mount the winch to that, and it'll help, stiffen up this corner. The problem is, truck frame is radiused like this, and I didn't radius this. So now I'm going to take a plasma cutter, because I've already beat this thing into place. And if you know anything about geometry, you know that try to get something like that with a lip on it past something like this that needs to be this deep with a lip at the top and a lip at the bottom, ain't exactly easy. I was originally going to use 3/8 plate here, so I wasn't concerned, because the idea was to just slide the plate in from the back. But we don't have any 3/8 plate. Thought we did, don't have it, gonna have to make do. Plus, I don't mind having this lip on the front to help it from, bending down. So let's get the plasma, cut some more off of this. Probably ain't gonna be pretty, but it is what it is. We'll give that a shot.
Gotta move your light. It's blocking.
I can't move my light.
Okay, it's blocking the video.
Once I set this, you can move it.
Okay.
Not before.
I thought it was set.
It was, and I moved it.
Well, quit.
How about that?
Yes.
this is our winch mount. Truck frame, I've got it all welded in. I did a little stitch weld, left a space, weld space, and I got the holes marked out. We're going to drill them next for the winch. And then we're also going to be running a snatch block. So the cable's going to come all the way to the back, roll around the snatch block, and then the cable come right back up here. And I needed a place to hook it. So I took this old U-bolt. This is one of the ones that was bent. And I drilled 2 holes. And I just took the carbide, whatever, and kind of ground the edge off so we could let it go like this. So my idea is to take it down here to the front plate of the carriage and then weld it in here. So we're doing twofold. We're pulling on this, which is pulling on the bottom, but we're also reinforcing this edge. So as the winch is pulling, it's going to want to be putting downward pressure here. So we're hopefully going to combat that by doing this. So now I'm getting ready to weld it in place. I'm not sure this is going to be in the way once we put the hook in here. If it is, then we'll heat this up right here, and then we'll just bend it down straight, and it should work out okay. So all right, so we're all in, and I went ahead and drilled the holes for the winch that's going to go up here. This is going to work out pretty good, I think. Like I said, worst case, if this is too high and the hook ends up being in the way, we'll just heat that up and bend her down just a little bit. I don't think we need to. And we got it going down here to the bottom, and it's all welded in. So now we are effectively pulling on this and pushing down at the same time. So the force acting down on this as the force actually pulling up on it. So hopefully it's going to work out pretty well. Before lunch welds, after lunch welds. Funny how that works. It's so nice to have the doors open today. All right, so next thing on the agenda is I want to build a safety prop rod, and I want it to come in here, and I want it to rest back here. So when this is up in the air and need to work on it, get underneath this or what have you, we can take them prop rods, lift them up, swing them down, and put them in a holder, and it'll hold this up. Now we're going to make one for each side, and what I'm going to make it out of is some tubing. It's 3-inch tubing. Actually, it's a old jack post for a basement. So it's got a decent wall, decent strength, and what I'm going to do, I started measuring this out. I took some gas line pipe, and we're going to drill a hole, sleeve this through here, and then put the bolt in smaller than this, not by a lot, but just slightly smaller, so that we can, are able to swing that thing out. But let me get these holes drilled, and I'll show you what we come up with. Alright, so this is what I'm putting together. We got it all cut. This is just truck frame, of course, and just a piece of plate steel. Old truck frame, pitted, of course. That is what it is. It'll work just fine. I took a piece of truck frame and let it roll around like this, and I just capped the end to match this, and then drilled a hole in it. So I got that sleeve in the tube, and then I just took an old U-bolt and cut it off for it to rest in. So what happens is when this goes up in the air, you need the prop rod, just lift this thing out of there, you see, because since I used a smaller bolt inside that sleeve, it allows me to do this. Now, the reason I use the truck frame like this was so that if that bolt would break when it's up in the air, it's gonna shove against this here, and there's enough clearance in there for that thing to roll. So that's one done. Now I'll get the other one finished. side. I think it's hot enough. So it's going to go right here, just like the other side. So we'll have 2 prop rods for each side, so that if he puts it up and puts the prop rods in place and then forgets, at least when he's trying to pull down the cylinders, it's not going to pull them. That's if he puts both prop rods up, I'm saying. Alright, now I got to grind this up and I have to drill a hole here. Got it all in, welded up, same thing. This is one of the old U-bolts from this truck. And again, the truck frame coming in here. Worked out really well. Pretty happy with that. Alright, I need to build that ICC bumper. And I got this truck here that has this frame extension on it, which we're going to be cutting this thing off way up here. So we do not need this ICC bumper for its purpose. So I think we're just going to cut it off of this one and repurpose. I don't think I'm going to use this part. I think I'm just going to use the lower part.
So he's welding in the ICC bumper that he made, and he kind of tapered this so that it fits the frame, so it looks better. But he has it tack welded, so now he's just going ahead and welding it for the final time.
Hot, hot, hot. Alright, I got the ICC bumper all welded in. Pretty happy with that. I wish I could have went a little bit shorter, but based on what I read on the FMCSA website, that's where it needs to be. So, actually, that's really not true because of the year of the truck. But at the same time, who wants to have roadside court, you know? I got interrupted by a telephone call. Anyways, you don't want to have roadside court where you're arguing with someone as to, you know, the standards of what you're supposed to have and all that. If you read the restrictions, the guidelines closely, because of the year of this truck, much of what you see doesn't apply, and but you have to be able to, you know, reason with someone alongside the road, and I'd just rather not do that. So we're just going ahead and make it meet the standards of what it's supposed to be, and we're all done. Still have the welding to do underneath it, but I'm going to do all that welding later, because I'm going to be taking this whole entire unit off, flipping it upside down, and then do all the finished welding. And we just picked these up today. These are going to be the rollers for the back, so I have to put them in. They're not exactly what I'm looking for. They're not a sealed bearing, but they are what they are. That's what he wants to use. I can make suggestions, but you know, in the end, it's his truck to do what he wants to do with. So he says if they last a year, fine. If they don't, well, I guess we'll readdress it then. I'd rather just address it and do it the way I want to do it to begin with, but again, it's his truck. Anyways, we're going to leave you with that because we're already probably over a half hour into this already. So next part will be fabricating the brackets for the hydraulics, putting the pins on, finishing up the back tail end of this, and so on and so forth. And we got a parts truck, so we got more stuff. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, leave your respectful comments down below, and we'll catch you on the next one. Say bye, lady.
Bye, lady.
We'll see you guys.